Church family, Pastor DJ here, excited to be joining you as we continue in this journey to the cross and as we celebrate together Holy Week. And today we are recognizing Maundy Thursday. And Maundy Thursday is really highlighted by two events, the Last Supper and Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. And what we see here in these two events is really Jesus and the disciples recognizing or observing the feast of Passover and the feast of unleavened bread. And it's out of these observances that we gain the elements of the Holy Communion. As Jesus and his disciples are meeting together at the appointed place, they're sat down at the table, and Jesus picks up the bread and he blesses it and he breaks it, and as he passes it out to his disciples, he says, "This is my body broken for you." And after they had supped, likewise, he takes the cup and gives thanks and blesses it, and as he passes it out, comments, "This is my blood that's shed for you." And after having done that, Jesus rises up from the table and he gets a basin and he fills it with water, and he takes the cloth from around his waist and he begins to wash his disciples' feet. And what we see in these two illustrations of Jesus, these two actions of Jesus, is truly Master and Lord being the ultimate servant. Jesus says that the Son of Man came to serve and not to be served. And really what we see being sort of bore out here in these two expressions about Jesus is a new covenant. Jesus is communicating here that he will indeed be the once and for all final Passover lamb, that there will be a new covenant, and good news for us in the church, that salvation will now be based on the acceptance of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, and not only to Jews but to Gentiles, to all of mankind who choose to accept Jesus Christ's coming sacrifice as the propitiation for sin, and having done so, being reconciled to our Father. Now, some of you may be wondering, why is it called Maundy Thursday? And Maundy really is derived from a Latin word meaning command. And what is happening here is Jesus is giving a new command to his disciples. Now, the Jews had already had the law and a command to love your neighbor as yourself. But what Jesus Christ sets out to do here in these two expressions and in his time spent with these disciples is to take that command and to move it even deeper. He's really raising the standard of holiness here, really to a love unto death. And if we think about that, Jesus Christ is wanting us to move to a deeper place of love, and that is bore out in the examples that he's showing here. It's a love that's steeped heavily in by a servant's heart. It's a sacrificial love. It's an unconditional love. And Maundy Thursday is really not about us observing the Last Supper or a Passover meal, or even us enjoining in a foot washing service or the washing of someone's feet. But rather it is a time for us in the church as believers to examine our hearts, examine the way in which we are loving each other. Jesus, when he finishes giving this new command, the command simply that to love each other as I have loved you, he says this, he says, "They will know, all the world will know that you are my disciples by how you love." And so today I want us to take an opportunity to examine our hearts and examine the way in which we are loving, and see if it meets the standard that Christ bore out and the standard that Christ commanded in this new covenant. I have raised this question to our young people before, but it bears mentioning it again. What would you do if you knew you had 24 hours to live? It's a tough question, and probably a question that takes a lot of thought. Um, but we see here that Jesus Christ, being just 24 hours removed from going to the cross, and 24 hours from his passion, he chose to spend his final hours washing feet and serving his disciples. And not only did he just wash feet, but he washed the feet and broke bread with the very man who would betray him unto death for 30 pieces of silver. That's the standard of love that we see here given by Christ, manifested by Christ. And we need to look at that today and challenge ourselves. Are we loving sacrificially? Are we loving unconditionally? Are we loving as Christ loved us? That's the new command. And that's what he's calling us to. And all around us we see a world that's desperate to be loved in a way that Christ has loved us. And so I pray that this challenge, we meet this challenge today as we examine our hearts to love deeper.